until the last few years, as sane adults, has there ever been this idea that in order to teach kids to be kind, that we need to teach them also that if they're a girl, that they can be a boy and vice versa? Welcome to my channel, Outspoken Samantha. If you are new here, welcome. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're returning, welcome back. Thank you so much for the support. On my channel, I like to give my opinion and perspective on things that are happening today, things that I think actually matter to everyday people, especially those of us trying to raise kids in the insanity known as today's society. Most of what I talk about is current events and politics and just issues of the day, so if that kind of content is interesting to you, I would love it if you would subscribe and help me to grow this channel, help me to reach more people that value logic, reason, and sanity. Also, be sure to find me on Rumble under Outspoken Samantha in the event that YouTube decides I have violated their community standards and chooses to kick me off their platform forever. That being said, let's get into today's topic. So today what I want to do is respond to a video from James Klug. And if you don't know who he is somebody that goes around and does these street interviews where, they'll pick a topic and they'll go around and ask people if they support this particular thing or if they're against it and why and what their understanding of it is. And sometimes he'll show, material from what it is that he's asking them about and get their opinion on it. So I know he does this kind of thing. I know Caitlin Bennett's another one who does, these street interviews, and Justin Awad, I think that's how you say his last name. There's a bunch of people that kind of do this thing. And I always find it really interesting because sometimes it becomes just glaringly obvious how little people pay attention to what's going on or how little they actually know about the things that they support. And I truly don't mean that to be insulting to anyone, because I know that there is so much going on, that there are so many issues to pay attention to, and sometimes ignorance really is bliss. Sometimes it is really nice to just kind of pretend that the world isn't imploding and that all of these things are not burning down around us and to just ignore it. But you can also go to the extreme and really ignore it too much and not pay enough attention. So when I say, it's important to be informed about things, I don't mean that you need to have a PhD on the subject or to be an expert or to be able to cite sources and quotes and data at the drop of a hat. But if you're going to say that you support something, it is important to know exactly what that thing is and to at least make sure that your understanding of it is correct. So in this particular topic of street discussions, the question that James asks is, should children be learning about gender ideology or gender theory? And he's specifically referring to the age groups under the age of 11. So elementary school between K through 5. Should children this young be learning gender theory and gender ideology? And just to make sure that we're all on the same page and we understand what gender ideology is, honestly, there's a lot to it. I get it. Basically, in this particular age group, they're teaching them that gender is not related to your biological sex. And they're teaching them things like the doctor just guesses what your gender is at birth based on what they can see of your anatomy, what they can see on the outside. But essentially, as you grow up, you can decide whether or not you want to be the gender that they assigned you, or if you want to be something else, or be nothing at all. And it is also up to you to make that self-diagnosis and then expect everyone around you to go along with that. Your teachers, your counselors, your parents, your friends, that you can make that self-declaration that you're completely the opposite gender of what you were assigned, or that you're nothing at all, and everybody else has to affirm it. And as they get older, they start to learn things like, you can pick any word you want and use that as your pronouns, that you're neither a boy nor a girl. They normalize things like taking hormones and puberty blockers to pause your development and give yourself time to think about what you really want to be. And then also leading into things like concepts from queer theory. And what queer theory is, like critical race theory teaches kids to look at everything through the lens of racism. Queer theory teaches kids to look at everything through the lens of sexuality. So the combination of these two things being taught in schools essentially boils us down to nothing but our sexuality and our skin color. Of course, the way that they introduce these things to kids is by using materials and activities that kids are already interested in, like storybooks and coloring pages and pictures and parades and story times. So all of the things that they know that kids are going to engage in. And the goal here is to reshape their worldview before they even have a chance chance to establish it for themselves. Before they even have a chance to consider that being a boy or girl is normal, they kind of want to nip that in the bud and replace it with this idea that gender is essentially whatever you want it to be. So keep that in mind as we're going through some of the clips from this street interview. Remember, the question that he is asking everybody is, should children be learning about gender ideology or gender theory? And this is in elementary school. I do recommend going over to James's channel and watching both of the videos in full. It's part 1 and part 2 as he's asking people this question. I'll also link the videos in the description box below. Let's get into some of these clips.
I think there's an appropriate way to work with it that's appropriate for elementary school kids.
What is the appropriate way, do you think?
I don't know. I'm not an elementary school teacher anymore, so I would defer to their expertise.
What would your opinion as an adult, being somewhat familiar with children, be?
It's okay to be different. Let's be kind.
I like that.
Let's be accepting. Let's be curious and respectful.
Right. So, I don't know if that really answers the question.
Yeah, that doesn't really answer the question, because it doesn't answer the question, because nobody is asking, should we teach kids to be loving and kind and accepting? Because since the beginning of time, that's been a goal for all of us. That is what we want for children. But the way that you teach them that, specifically as a teacher in the classroom environment, is you teach them to share. You teach them to respect their peers. You teach them to work hard. And you teach them proper social skills and model appropriate social behavior. You also help them overcome challenges, and you praise them when they have overcome something that has been challenging to them. And everything that you teach them is based in reality, because all of these things help children to feel secure by providing a healthy learning environment where everybody is kind to each other, regardless of your background, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your personal beliefs, that you come together in the learning environment and you respect each other, even if you don't all come from the same belief system. Again, everybody has this goal for kids. We want them to grow up to be good people. But until the last few years, as sane adults, has there ever been this idea that in order to teach kids to be kind, that we need to teach them also that if they're a girl, that they can be a boy, and vice versa? And I believe she said she was a former school teacher. Does she think that what was missing from her classroom was teaching kids that becoming the opposite sex is totally normal, and that her kids would have been more kind had they been taught that words like sie and zir are pronouns that are totally normal to refer to their peers as? Was there a lack of kindness in her classroom, and she didn't realize that what the missing link was discussing sexuality with a classroom full of 7-year-olds? But I do believe that a lot of people think this is what gender ideology is. It's just another means of teaching kids to be kind and teaching them to be respectful and to teach them to be accepting of differences. And that's really not what it is at all. So next.
What are our thoughts, you guys?
As a parent, I've shared it with my daughter, so I feel fine with that.
Yeah.
For me sharing it with my daughter.
Awesome. How old's your daughter?
She's 9.
I would say there's probably a reasonable age. I don't think it's second and third graders, probably not the right age. But
Why not? Would you say second and third grade?
Geez, I don't know. They're learning to read and write. I think that's probably where we should start.
I love it when this lady says, well, I shared it with my daughter. She's 9. And I have a question, like, what exactly did you share with your daughter? Are you talking about that you had a discussion, like a discussion about sex with your 9-year-old child, which is totally fine. You know your daughter and you know if she is ready to handle that discussion. Or did you actually sit her down and tell her about gender theory, that she can be whatever gender she wants, and that you'd be totally fine if she started dressing like a boy and wanted a prescription for puberty blockers and testosterone? Is that the conversation that you had with your 9-year-old? Because those are the conversations that teachers are now having with children in their classrooms, and they're hiding it from parents. So I'm not exactly sure that that's what you're saying that you're fine with.
Binary gender theory. There's the idea that there's more than 2 genders, the idea that gender is self-identified and not connected to one's biology. Do you think that that is appropriate to be teaching to children in elementary school, let's just say below the grade of 6th grade?
Well, didn't they teach that in fifth grade? Wasn't that sex education?
Could be basic sex education, yeah.
I think should be appropriate at that age. I mean, if you're going to teach someone about sex, you need to teach them about their bodies.
What this lady said is what a lot of people think that gender theory and gender ideology is that it's just another form of sex education, and that we need to allow sex ed in schools. And again, this isn't an argument that people are arguing against. Nobody is saying that we shouldn't have any health discussion or sex discussion in school. I know we had, basic sex ed when I was a kid. I have a 12-year-old son, and I remember, I think it was 4th or 5th grade, where his teacher sent out an email saying they were going to have this health class, and they sent us the material saying this is what we're going to be learning, and we were able to view the video that they were going to be learning. All of it was age appropriate stuff that I really felt was applicable to his age group, and we said sure, fine. They discussed, they kind of touched on different topics about their growing bodies and hormones and sex and all of these things. And then my middle son is getting to that age where we just got an email for him saying they're going to be learning these things again, and we're able to look at the materials. That is not what anybody is arguing against. What would be a problem is if they took the video that was meant for the boys group to instruct them and give them information about what's happening to their bodies, and the video that's made for the girls group to, kind of give them more information about what's happening to their bodies. And once they were done with those respective groups, they switched the videos and said, boys, you need to watch the video about what happens to girls' bodies in puberty so that you guys can be more comfortable when you see tampons in the boys' bathroom. And girls, you need to watch the video about what happens to boys' bodies in puberty in case, things start to happen that you can relate to in the sphere of the boys' biological sex. So, nobody would do that because that doesn't make any sense. It's not based in reality. And if you were showing kids these videos with the intent of teaching them that these things were possible for them to happen, people would be like, what the heck are you doing? What the gender activists are doing is hanging pride flags everywhere to promote something that has no scientific basis whatsoever. It's called a theory. It's called an ideology. And what they're doing is recruiting kids into this ideology, into being advocates for it before they even understand what it is, because they know that kids are impressionable. They know that they're vulnerable, and they know specifically at this time that they're going to be particularly uncomfortable about their body. So it's easy to sell them something that would help them escape those experiences.
Should elementary school teachers be teaching children about gender theory? What do you think?
Absolutely.
At what age should they start that?
As soon as the children are born.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you think so?
Because why not? It's part of biology. It's part of their life. Don't be silly.
It's part of biology?
Absolutely.
And then there's this guy. I would bet 100%. I would bet any money that this guy's part of the LGBTQ community, which in and of itself is not a problem, but the fact that he says that kids should be taught this from the time that they're born, and that it's part of biology, just screams LGBTQ activism to me. And he did run away before being able to engage in an actual conversation, so all of the hallmarks of a typical leftist, with not being able to provide anything to back it up, but just wanting to be able to say something and then insult the person and then walk away.
I understand both sides of the argument. I do. Personally,
which one do you lean towards?
I lean towards teaching gender
ideology to children.
Thanks. It becomes an issue is, at what point, at what age is it going to be appropriate where they can handle it?
That was one of my next questions. Which one is it? What age?
Well, that's the thing. It's different for every person,
What age do you think it's okay? Because in the United States, it's being taught in kindergarten. In many districts.
It depends how it's taught.
How about this? Book display in Maryland Elementary School. The books discuss gender identity, including doctors guessing a baby's gender, and a toddler can know that they're transgender. These are books that they read in class. Is that promoting or exposing? They're not being taught that this is an ideology or that some people believe this. They're being taught that this is how things are. There's a third gender.
Then that's a problem.
And what I find interesting about this conversation is that this guy does try to appease both sides, which to me, as much as I would love it, us to be able to come back together and unify and not have so much division in the country, this is not something that I can compromise on. When it comes to harming children, there's no middle ground with this. I'm sure this guy's a very nice person, so it's nothing against him, but you represent this approach that far too many people take in this country, which is exactly why our classrooms now look like trans activist training facilities. Teachers and activists in the classroom are aggressively planting these kinds of ideas in kids' minds. And not only that, if you as a parent are against your child learning these things, you're targeted, you're labeled as a bigot, you're called out for being transphobic and against human rights. And this retaliation against parents is getting more and more severe. They don't just want to expose children to it, they want it planted into every cell of their mind and body, and they're willing to convince kids that their own parents are unsafe if their parents express any concern over it. Thankfully, there is some sanity in the world, and James was able to come across people that are against it.
Why confuse a little kid like that?
At 5 years old, that's too early. You don't even should confuse a kid, but at 5 years old, they should just be playing, and you're also putting thoughts into their head. You're putting those ideas into their head. that's what you're also doing.
So that's not the place of the teacher.
No, not the teacher. Not the teacher.
Should elementary school teachers be teaching children about gender theory?
No way.
No way.
Absolutely not.
Why do you say no way?
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody should be talking to my kid about any kind of sexual anything except for their parents, their family.
Why should they be teaching it is the better question.
I think at that age, it would be a discussion for the parents.
Like I said, you don't have to be an expert in the field, you don't have to have a PhD, but you need to at least understand what it is and grasp why it could potentially be harmful to teach kids that gender is not linked to your biology, that there's, 97 genders and you can be whatever you want. What they do understand is the irrefutable truth that we need to let kids be kids, that nothing has changed about the maturity level and psychological development of children in 2023, where suddenly, modern kids are more equipped to handle these concepts than kids in the last 20, 30, 50 years, or, ever at any other point in time in history, that something about their psychological development is so drastically changed that it's appropriate to introduce concepts to them that most adults struggle to understand. These people also understand that there are certain boundaries that teachers need to respect, and that certain topics are the territory of parents to discuss, not the teachers. And that has not changed. And then there's this guy, and this guy gets it. He brings us back to hope and sanity. Let's have a listen.
I mean, we're running into a lot of people that are saying, oh yeah, start them off kindergarten, teach them about they, them, and stuff.
That's
what are your
absurd.
thoughts about that?
That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard. Why would you do that? They have no idea what that means. I was a high school principal. I was actually also a school board member for 12 years.
Yeah.
Well, I've been in education my whole life, and I've been a policy maker for a lot of those years as a principal and as a school board member. For people to say that, oh, they're educators, we trust them, they know what they're doing. Hey, I was a high school principal. I had a lot of great teachers, and I had a lot of teachers who had no business being in education. You can't close the doors and trust another adult just because they're in that profession. I don't care what the profession is.
Yeah.
Well, I love cops, but I don't trust all cops.
No.
Teachers, I was a teacher. I was a principal. I don't trust them all. Some of them have great motivation and they do what they think is best. That doesn't mean they're doing what's best.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to guide them. There are others that have no business working with children. Even if you've got my last high school that I was principal at, I had 250 teachers. It was a huge, huge high school. Well, if 10%, 25 teachers have no business in education, times that by 180, and how many kids are they screwing over?
So this guy touches on some great points, and he comes from a place of credibility. In some of the clips that I was not able to include in this video, but go watch it on James's channel, there were a lot of people that said, well, teachers are the experts, they know what they're doing, we just need to let them do their job. And that is completely irresponsible. In what world do we ever say that just because someone has a degree in something, this means that they're going to be amazing at it, that they are incapable of doing a bad job or behaving inappropriately, or that it's impossible for them to act in self-interest instead of in the best interest of others? I mean, that makes absolutely no sense. And especially coming from the place of a parent, it is your job to know who someone is regardless of what their expertise are. The people that you are entrusting with your children, you need to know what their motives are. You need to know what it is that they believe and what they promote, because guarantee that is going to come into the classroom whether or not it's in the best interest of kids at all. And he also points out, it might be a small minority of teachers that are bad teachers that have no business being in education, but that's still hundreds of kids that they are being exposed to and that are being exposed to them every single year. And the people that push gender ideology, from the top down, they know that they don't need every teacher to be on board with this. They don't need every student to be influenced by it and to buy into it. They just need a small percentage of the population, because those become the loudest voices. Those have the influence on legislation. Those people have the influence on our teachers' unions, and then they end up being the ones that decide what every other kid is exposed to. I know that there's a lot to it. There's a lot to read. There's so much going on. It's really difficult to fully and completely understand the depth of every single issue out there. But I do think that specifically when it comes to our kids, it is our job and it is our responsibility to be informed exactly about what it is that they are being taught in the classroom, to expect our teachers to spend that instruction time making sure that they know how to read and to write and to do math. Because as I said in one of my last videos that there are 54% of adults in the US between the ages of 16 to 74 that are illiterate and are reading below a 6th grade level. If you go and watch Justin Awad's videos, he does a lot of these questions where he asks people just very basic things like how many states are in the US, or name a country that starts with the letter M. And there's, teenagers and college grads that cannot answer these questions. And this is where we are failing. So to me, you not only need to know what's happening in the classroom and what kids are being taught, you need to know that their education time is being imposed on and it is being taken away from them, and they are emerging from their education knowing absolutely nothing. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please give this video a thumbs up. Please be sure you are subscribed. Help me to grow this channel. Thank you, James, for letting me use clips from your videos. All of you should really go over there and watch all of them all the way through and let me know what you think. Also, I truly do appreciate support on this channel. It's kind of been a slow process of growth, but I appreciate every like and every comment and every interaction. So let's keep moving forward and making sure we know what's going on in the world around us. So have a good one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.